Fabulous. There we go. Okay. Let's see if I can full screen us. Let's see what that looks like. All right. Hi again, John. You can hear me all right?
I hear you fine. Yeah, it's good.
Great. What's in front of you? You've got a sort of grey thing that's in front of you that I can't see you from the chest down.
Oh, that's part of my music stand.
All right.
Yeah, can do that.
Oh, it's still. I can see you from tits
Yeah,
down now.
I don't think we've got an option with that one.
Okay. Right. So, thanks for your patience, folks. So, we were talking, John, that I first met you in. Oh, that's yeah, a little bit better. I first met you in 1991 in
That's right.
QIO3, but and you're a year younger than me, so I was 14 going on 15 at the time. But you little genius, you joined QIO3, Queensland Youth Orchestra 3, at the age of 10.
Yeah, and I really had very little idea what I was doing or what was going on. I just turned up to this great big building at the bottom of Gregory Terrace there and at the old museum, and went in, and I wasn't entirely even sure what an orchestra was. I don't think at that age. I just probably thought it was going to be like a school band or something, and then anyway, it was quite a revelation, and I can remember the very first thing in the very first rehearsal was Capriccio Italian by Tchaikovsky, and of course it starts with the trumpets, and with this thing.
Yep.
And I had a B flat trumpet, as was standard, and of course it's written for trumpet in E, and from a you know, or transposing an augmented fourth when I didn't even know what transposing meant was a little bit of an issue. So I think I was literally just looking at the valves of the other trumpet players and trying to figure it out on the spot, and probably with not much success. I can't really recall, but anyway, from humble beginnings, we took our first tender steps into the life of a musician, and anyway, fast forward 30 years or so, here we are.
So, I moved up from QIO3 to QIO2 the next year in 92. Where'd you go from Nick?
Yeah, I would have been there with you, I'm sure. Um, I Because I remember in '93 I was in QAO2, but I was in the AYO, and I was playing
You
with
want to
the.
translate that for the fans?
Oh, sure. So even though I was in the second Queensland Youth Orchestra, I was playing in the Australian Youth Orchestra, and I was playing with the Queensland Symphony Orchestra, and the Queensland Philharmonic that year. And so people thought it was a little bit anomalous that I couldn't get into the first Queensland Youth Orchestra, but I could get into these other groups. That's all I remember from that time, really. But I think I'd put on a few more notes under my belt by that point, and I figured out how to transpose, which was a big help.
Yeah.
And and I was studying with Yoram Levy at the time, who's still the principal trumpet in the Tasmanian Symphony. He's a wonderful trumpet player and a wonderful teacher of the trumpet. So he was fresh from the Israel Philharmonic when he moved to Brisbane, and I'd never learned off anyone as accomplished as he was, and he'd never taught a 12-year-old before. So that was another interesting sort of first. that came about, and we're still great friends to this day. So, we were probably doing something right. So,
Then,
yeah.
so we played in QIS. I remember I was there in '95, and then in '96 I played in the Australian Youth Orchestra, and we went to the Atlanta Olympics, which was pretty cool.
I just remember that trip. It was incredibly hot.
Oh, was it? Atlanta's just like Brisbane.
It is, yeah, very high humidity and quite in the south of the US. So yeah, and I remember we stayed about a 2-hour drive out of Atlanta to find anywhere that could host a group of our size.
That's right. Wasn't it Rome? I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't remember.
yeah, yeah.
I do remember that we went from Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam
Mm.
to Heathrow, and then Heathrow to New York, and then New York to Atlanta, and it was about, I don't know, it must have been over 24 hours travel.
Yeah,
Then,
just
then I had
unbelievable.
to jump on buses and drive another 2 hours. It was just, the travelling that would never end. I just do remember that one. So,
I recall because unlike some people, I wasn't drinking, but I remember on the flight from Sydney to London, um, we were banned from drinking alcohol. I think 2 hours in because you brass players got into it.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Actually, I think you managed to scrounge a beer as we were flying into Heathrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. It was either you or Dave Elton, I think.
Right. Yeah, good.
As I said,
I do.
I wasn't drinking on that flight. So
I do remember Jeremy Williamson had to go to the Heathrow hospital.
really,
Uh, Alcohol poisoning. Yeah.
Jeremy's another Queensland boy fans. Um,
And we probably shouldn't throw him under the bus too much because he's a school principal now.
Jerry, really. Okay, so you graduated in was it '98 from the
Yeah, that
conservatorium?
sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you do after that? Because we kind of lost contact after that. I know that you got the Sydney Symphony job in 2001.
Yeah. So straight, I was over in the Royal College, and
Oh,
then
you went there too.
yeah, I was at the Royal College, and then I got a job in the Auckland Philharmonia
Oh,
straight
I
out of
see.
college.
Yeah.
So I kind of wrapped up things there and went over and did 2 seasons with the APO, and then did a season with the Adelaide Symphony. And then was trying out for a few different orchestras and things, and then ended up going to enrol in a master's in Canberra. But then I got no sooner had I done that than I got the job in the SSO, the Sydney Symphony, and stayed there for 12 years. So that so it was. When you're young or whatever, you just go wherever the work is, wherever the opportunities are. So I was sort of bouncing here, there, and everywhere, and always obviously devoted to the Baroque music and early instruments in the background, and started the Australian Baroque Brass at the end of 2003.
And
Yeah,
so you left SSO in 2013.
that's right.
Yep,
Yeah.
and went freelance. And so, what did you do with yourself once you left SSO?
I just started accepting all the invitations that I had to turn down when I was in the SSO. So it was really uh, great. I mean, on the one hand, although there's a certain amount of stability and reliability in having an orchestral job, my view is that there's only so many times you can possibly play Beethoven 5 in one lifetime. So I
But have you
rather
played
than
P.D.Q. Bach's Beethoven 5?
I don't know that one.
Oh, you'd love it, John. Look up P.D.Q. Bach Beethoven 5. I played it for the fans a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Do you know P.D.Q. Bach? Have you
Oh,
heard
yeah.
of him? Yeah,
Yeah.
well, basically the Beethoven 5 version of PDQ Bach is a sports commentator commentating on it.
Oh, that rings a bell, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think the one of the horns stuffed up, and he went in the sin bin. And you know that big sort of oboe solo that comes out of the main theme on the recap.
Yeah.
Um, well, she managed to get the conductor sin binned, and you know it's I mean
Right.
it's an
Yeah.
NFL focus, but I think you get a kick out of it. So anyway, so you formed Australian Baroque Brass.
Yeah. So that was, a real passion project in the beginning, and obviously no one was doing early brass playing in Australia really to a large extent. There was a few people around who were interested, and some people that were doing a little bit, but there was no dedicated ensemble. So we started that, and realised that obviously audiences really were very receptive to that style of music, and uh, albeit a very small corner, we had a bit of the market cornered, um, and yeah, we started making recordings and touring and doing all the usual sorts of things and playing at festivals and concert series, and we started our own subscription concert series in Sydney at St James, and a lot of exciting things were happening.
So what got you interested in Baroque music? For me, it was I always loved Bach, but then someone said, "Oh, take up the recorder," and then I got into sort of interested in playing on the instruments of the time. Is that and I feel closer to the music when I'm playing on the same instrument that Bach wrote
Yeah,
for. What was that like for you getting into Baroque music?
idiomatically, it makes so much more sense on Baroque trumpet to play that literature and that repertoire. And of course, a lot of the literature going, as Baroque music started to become popular in the 1950s and 60s, they had this little short piccolo trumpet that Maurice Andre really made famous, and Adolphe Schoenbaum before him. And although it can be a very brilliant instrument and very exciting instrument, it's 1/4 the length of the actual original instrument, so it's a little bit hard to get the same sort of sonority or overtones in the sounds with that short amount of piping. So um, it took a good sort of it's taken a good 50 years of sort of research and trial and error to get us to the point we are now, where we feel comfortable with a sort of doctrine of playing these instruments again, and how they fit in their role to the music with the other instruments and things. But yeah, my initial fascination with it came through of the repertoire. So actually listening to it performed on modern instruments, and then I ran into Crispy and Still Perkins in the early 90s and got to spend some time with him. And then I met Michael Laird, who was a fellow of the and professor for 35 years at the Royal College of Music. And on day one, walking in there, he handed me a cornetto and a Baroque trumpet, and that was it. I was hooked.
Cool. Now you've sort of become a world leader, sort of an expert on Baroque trumpet. You give master classes all over the world, don't you?
I have done. It sort of comes a little bit part and parcel of touring places. You might get invited to, if people know you come in, they like to get you and speak to the students and things like that. So yeah, in Europe and America and Asia. I haven't given too many master classes in Africa or Antarctica yet, but
You're
um,
working on it.
keep working on it. Yeah, exactly.
And another of the things you started this a few years ago, you host your own trumpet academy.
Yeah, it's the Australasian Trumpet Academy, and that's a lot of fun. And once again, a real passion project of mine, because I get to it's my way of giving back to the trumpet community, and particularly to the young trumpet players in Australia. And every year we bring great artists from all over the world, as well as Australian artists as well. And we spent a week up in the rainforest together in a retreat, and just the beautiful, quiet, serene surrounds of nature, and then 30 trumpet players blowing their brains out. So it's, what could be better than that? And the local community sort of doesn't quite know what's hit it for that week, but
as do the bottle shops.
Yeah, and then at the end of that week, we all travel down to Brisbane, and we give a concert showing everyone what we've worked on through the week. And
so this, this first video I'm going to show the fans is from last year, I believe.
Right, yeah. So I think it's a video with myself and Reinhold Friedrich, Professor Reinhold Friedrich, who's arguably one of the best trumpet players of his generation, and former winner of the Munich ARD solo competition, and former principal trumpet of the Frankfurt Radio Orchestra, and he teaches at the Hochschule in Baden. And oh, sorry, having a senior moment.
Anyway, oh, come on, you're a year younger than me.
I know.
Okay, well, seeing we're on Zoom, why don't you stay on Zoom? I'll mute you, but you should be able to hear the audio coming in from my end. So I'm going to play this first video for the fans. And actually, this is from your personal YouTube channel. I have linked it in the description below if you want to subscribe to John. There's a lot of good stuff on there. So here we are. Here's the first track from the of John and a mate from the Australian Trumpet Academy from last year, recorded in St Andrew's Uniting Church in Brisbane. All right, we get some bonus material. All right, John, did you hear it? Did you hear any of that?
Yep. Yep.
Cool.
All
Sounds nice. Right now you've got. I was going to play videos, but I think we'll get us. I'll get you to show everyone because you've got some interesting things behind you. I understand you've got one of the biggest collection of trumpets and baroque trumpets and historical trumpets in the Southern Hemisphere. Am I right?
Yeah, something like that. Yep. Mainly because collecting lots of trumpets probably seems like a bit of a dumb idea to most people, but not to me. I love them. And look, there's about 100 trumpets in this front room, and various other trumpet-related instruments and things. But yeah, I've got a few instruments here I've picked out just to give you a little look at. Of course, this is my sort of workhorse, my main weapon of choice, my baroque trumpet. And you can see it's about twice the length of your regular modern trumpet. And that's needed so that we can produce harmonics in the harmonic series. So the harmonic series are the notes you can get on any piece of tubing, which are just produced fundamentally by buzzing the lips and blowing air. Which, if you think of like an elephant's tusk, when they call trumpeting of an elephant, it's a little bit reminiscent of me just running up and down the harmonics, because literally that's what happens.
Yeah, because there's no vowels on that thing.
No vowels, so basically played just using those harmonics. However, we do have a few little holes, which are a more recent addition, just to try and help us play with different temperaments and intonations so that we can play more easily with the other instruments. If I play it without the thing, you'll hear the 11th partial and the 13th partial don't really fit into a diatonic scale.
Yeah, so if I can just we can just explain about this harmonic series thing for the fans that aren't that are geology fans. Basically, the harmonic series is if you, I mean, very simply, if you have an empty bottle of beer and you blow over it, you'll get a tone. That's like the fundamental tone. And if you blow over that bottle a bit harder, you'll get an octave higher, and that's what's called your that's a harmonic. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And so it goes from fundamental, octave, fifth, then another fourth to the next octave, and then. So, do you want to demonstrate that for the fans on the trumpet?
As Kathy was saying, the harmonic series, as you go higher, the steps become closer together gradually. So the first step is you've got the fundamental, and then a fifth, and then the interval comes to a fourth, and then it's a major third, then a minor third, and basically for us, we need to get to the start of our fourth octave on this instrument before we can play melodically, so the notes are stepwise. So, but actually, if I play here, that's already my third harmonic. So we're going from there to a fourth. Okay, so that's actually already the start of my third octave, even though it's a low note. Then we go to a third, a minor third, another minor third, and then finally a step. And now that C there, that's the start of my fourth octave. And being that it's only made out of a bit of simple plumbing, you get water collecting it that you have to empty out, which is always very impressive for audiences. And as I go higher, the notes continue to get closer together. So we get to these harmonics which are really out of tune to our modern ears. We have these vent holes just to bring them more in tune. And then basically...
So those holes aren't like cheating to help you get the note easier. It's just a tuning thing?
It's literally they're just there. They don't play the notes for you. You're still doing it here, but they just make the targets feel a little bit more secure in the centre of where you want to put the pitch.
Show us a lip trill, John. So for the fans in America, there's no vowels. The holes are there just for tuning. All of the notes come from the lip. Give us a lip trill. These are impressive. Wow, that's that's a lot of hours in the practice room, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, look, you'd be surprised because basically what I'm doing is the lips. Actually, it's a little bit of a misnomer in the terminology. It's the lips really don't do that much. It's the tongue. It's really a tongue trill. So if everyone can
is that
whistle,
position of the tongue in the mouth?
I'm whistling. I'm doing this.
Oh.
And funnily enough, the more I practice those trills, my whistling actually really improves. So
wow.
And vice versa. If I practice my whistling, my lip trills improve.
I didn't know that. So that's really, really cool. Have you got a cornetto to show us? We were introduced to the cornetto last week, and they were interested in sort of the mouthpiece and that sort of thing.
Alright, so I've got one here.
Okay, your picture has just we're not live. There we are. Yeah, you're wrong way up again. You're wrong way up again. John?
Oh.
That's better. That's better. All right, this is a cornetto, folks. So can you explain a little bit about the cornetto for these guys?
This is basically made out of tusk or bone, horn, animal horn, and it's made out of I think this one's pear wood.
But has it been stained or painted?
No, it's wrapped in leather.
Well, there you
So,
go. Yeah, because pearwood's actually quite a light coloured wood. A lot of my recorders are made out of it.
right, yes, no, this one's bound in leather, and as was the style at the time. And because of Australia's climate, I'm constantly having to oil it. So I use almond oil and things like that to try and keep it behaving itself. So that's a bit of put out for you.
What's its range? Because obviously it wouldn't have the same number of overtones as the baroque trumpet because it's just not as long. The air column's not as long.
No, but because we've got 7 holes, then really we're not limited because it is fully chromatic. So you can, but the upper range, lower range is sort of as low as you can get it to sound good, essentially.
Mm.
You don't really want to go too much below sort of that bottom C or whatever, but the upper range. It's basically how high you can play.
Wow. What? Because I mean, for a wind player, I'm used to you move a finger and the note changes.
Yeah.
And what's it? What's the mindset like for a brass player to be effectively playing an instrument that's kind of a hybrid?
Yeah, it's a
Because
tone hybrid.
you're used to with three valves.
Yeah, I'm used to changing the whole sounding length of the instrument every time I press a button. Whereas, yeah, like you say, like being able to lift up a finger and have the pitch change so dramatically, it's actually really nice. It's really relaxing. Not having to do it all here and change the air column so drastically if I want to change registers and things like that. But it's actually because we also play keyed instruments in the 19th century and late 18th, early 19th century. So I've got here as well a keyed trumpet to show you, which is an
Oh,
instrument
hang on.
that Haydn and Hummel and other various composers wrote for. And it's the same thing, but we've actually got 3 holes. And if we count back from the bell, we've got a tone hole there. If you open that, of course, it raises the pitch, so we're shortening the tube. And that's a semitone or a half step, whole tone or a whole step, and a minor third, raising. So. Of course, this instrument had about a lifespan of about 50 years in sort of popular usage. It started life as a solo instrument with Anton Weidinger in Vienna, and its last usage was sort of regionally and in Italy, playing in operas and things like that, because it could play completely chromatically. And that was the first time for the trumpet that we could really usefully play chromatically. Of course, the problem is when you open holes, you're losing sound quality because it's not all coming from the bell. All of a sudden, you're getting sound coming from elsewhere. But composers were very clever with how they used the trumpet with this new invention, and it actually makes for nice tone colours and things that they use within phrases to actually emphasise certain notes. And of course, everyone recognises this piece, hopefully, but and you hear Haydn suddenly throwing between what the new capabilities of this instrument and the old natural trumpet. So he throws in that joke at the end, rom, bom, 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 because that's, of course, what a lot of composers thought the trumpet was good for.
And you mentioned about when you played the Capriccio Italiano, it was trumpet in E. Now, because the trumpets didn't have vowels and you're relying on the natural harmonic system, and also like the early clarinet, because you were limited either by lack of keys or harmonics, if you wanted to play like in the key of D or the key of A or whatever, you simply, stuck a different crook in? Is that right? You stuck a different crook in and then you could play in that key. And that's why even in Mahler and that, especially for the horn players, they're always transposing. Horn in D, horn in F, horn in whatever, because of the lack of valves. Is that right?
Well, yeah. Well, early on, I mean, the valve was in fact invented essentially sort of around 1815, but the early valves were really more of a fast way of crooking the instrument into a different length, rather than the way we think about a three-valve system now, which is for running all around the instrument. They would still play on the harmonic series, just in another set of harmonics and different key. Basically, this is a modern B-flat trumpet, and we have 7 natural trumpets rolled into one. Okay, I've got this harmonic series. I've got the next one, which I'm adding the shortest piece of tubing, which is the second valve. The next longest pipe's the first valve. Okay, and then the next longest pipe is the third valve is longer, but I can do this 2 ways. I can add 1 and 2 together, or I can just use 3. So, and then obviously the last one, the 7th one, is all of them together. Oh, actually no, we skipped one. So 1 and 3, and then 1, 2, and 3. So if you look at that thing in Capriccio Italian, it's absolutely natural trumpet writing, just using that E major. So luckily for me, there was no valves required. Just had to set and forget the right length of instrument.
That's great, Joe. I didn't actually know that. I didn't actually know that about.
Far went past when the instrument was chromaticized. If you look at all the Wagner stuff, Schumann, Brahms, all that stuff, and definitely Mahler. Yeah, even if there is non-harmonic series notes, it's all within the framework of writing for the natural trumpet.
Wow. Okay. Let's have a look at what the next piece is. Okay, so you formed Australian Baroque Brass in the early 2000s. Here we go. Oh, I've played that. You're almost done. Yeah, mate.
Yeah, hear you now.
Oh, good. Sorry, I was still playing. I was still playing a little bit of the last track. Oh, you got away
Okay.
again. You got away again, John. John, here we are. All right. So we saw some cornetos there, baroque trumpet, and we saw ourselves a sackbut or two as well.
Yeah, sackbut. That's or in French, the sac-bout, which literally the two parts of the word mean push, pull, as in using the slide of the instrument. Yeah, that's it. very, very literal interpretation. They had to use a simple name for the instrument because most trombone players are pretty simple people.
Yeah. Yeah, so the sackbut is the predecessor to the modern trombone.
Yeah, essentially.
And there were a few of them, though. Did they have a limited range? Because I noticed, didn't they have like an alto sackbut and a tenor sackbut?
All the instruments copied the 4 different voice types in the choir. So you have soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, like you would in a choir, and the varying sizes of the instruments. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got a few other instruments here, Kathy.
Oh yeah.
Just talk you through a couple that I've picked out.
I hope you've got a little bit of time for us. Some of these live streams can go a couple of hours. I don't want to sort of keep you all day, but
I've got a bit more time for you, Kathy. No worries. Just another. We saw the long baroque trumpet before, but actually, this is actually the same length of instrument. Another one. This is a tromba de caccia or hunting trumpet, but it's another instrument which was used in the baroque. This is basically a fairly rough interpretation, but essentially it works much the same way.
and that's a trumpet. That's not a horn.
No, it's a trumpet. Yeah.
And what's the da caccia? Because I had a guest on last week who had an oboe da caccia. So obviously that's some sort of name that's associated with musical instruments at the time.
With the caccia, it's to do with hunting.
Oh, I see. Ah.
And I've got an instrument here which is it's called a demi-lune trumpet.
There you go, folks.
Demi-lunar or half moon shape trumpet, and this was basically an instrument used by the French infantry in the late 18th, early 19th century, and it was like the hand-stopped horn, but they'd actually hand-stopped the trumpet to get a few extra notes. So it was another way of trying to chromaticize the trumpet. This one's in F, I think. So once again, it's a little bit of an outdoor instrument rather than, so you wouldn't play much art music with this per se, but the very first of military bands did use this for quite a while.
That's so that's using French horn technique, because they put their hand in the bell, and I know with natural horn that the notes they couldn't get via the harmonic series they got by stuffing their hand in the bell. So that's French horn technique.
Change the sounding length by putting the hand in the bell. Now, this instrument would be something that a lot of people would recognise, and it is like a brass band cornet. This one's from about 1890, British, and as you'd expect, it sounds much like a cornet. But it has a little secret. And what the secret is, it's got another bell. It's got an echo chamber. So essentially, this is an echo cornet, and it was a bit of a novelty instrument, for a little bit in the brass band era, but in the 19th century. But they're interesting pieces. But you play it this way to the audience, so they couldn't see the echo chamber, and then you'd have a little bit of magic happen. And so you sort of could play duets with yourself. So that's another fun instrument. I've got another one back here in the big cupboard.
He goes to the big cupboard, folks.
And excuse my back there. There's another cornet. This is a French cornet. This is from 1890, and it's a very working class sort of instrument. It's looking a bit scruffy these days, but the thing was, they actually made these instruments, and they were far better than even modern day cornets now. On other modern brass instruments, you see I've got tuning slides that move and things, and that's because the brass instruments are essentially out of tune. The dimensions of this instrument are such that basically the intonation is excellent. Quality of these instruments was just superior compared to modern cornets. It's got a much more conical nature in the design, so it's got a much more mellifluous sort of sound. And back then, of course, the cornet was really the most popular instrument going around because they could play it outdoors at events and things like that. Jules Levy, when he toured Australia in the 1870s, had something like 20,000 people come and hear him play at the Sydney Exhibition Hall. So they were really rock stars of the day, and they had to play incredibly virtuoso pieces. They'd actually, and they'd have competitions to see who could sort of outdo each other. So you do theme and variations and things like that. And basically just work on trying to show off. Essentially, the cornet was a very showy instrument, but it's a lot of fun and an instrument that I really enjoy playing a lot. I've got another instrument here. The predecessor to the brass band cornet was this instrument.
Oh, look at that.
Which is a keyed bugle. And it's definitely woodwind style keys. Top of what's essentially just what we call a clarion or a bugle. And once again, it's a very mellifluous sort of sound, very...
That's a big word, John. I don't know if our viewers can handle that. Oh, lovely. And that was the instrument that really got the brass band started. So an original brass band, rather than cornets, would have a section of these. So, no instruments changed more than the trumpet family over the years. So I don't know, John. The clarinet's kind of a little bit different.
Here that would put up a pretty good argument.
Well, I mean the clarinet used to be the chalumeau, and that's kind of a little bit different from the modern clarinet.
Well, they only invented the clarinet to mock the trumpet anyway.
I know, because clarinet comes from clarion,
That's
meaning
right.
sounding like trumpet. So.
Clarion, and of course we used to have a little bit of a crossover time with composers like Malta and things like this, where your early concertos were in D and ours were in D, and we'd actually play very similar repertoire.
Yeah, well, the early Baroque clarinet. So I think the two most popular Baroque clarinets were in C and D.
That's right.
Yeah.
As were trumpets most of the time. We didn't get any interesting keys until the classical period, where we tended to go into some of the higher pitches.
Okay. I think what I might get into now are a couple of your professional recordings.
Okay, go for it.
I'm gonna skip a couple of things. Because actually, one thing I wanted to chat about is these recordings that you shared with us this morning. Are live recordings, and I brought this up in a previous live stream, is that it actually takes a lot of guts to put a live recording on YouTube. I don't know what you think about that, because I know that I had to quit a group because they were so against being recorded. Even if I wasn't going to publish it, that I told them, I'm going, man. You don't want me free recording you, in HD. But I mean, given that this is a discussion that I wasn't able to have with the guest, but I can have it with you because you have recordings both live and on CD, is that it actually takes a lot of guts to put a live recording on YouTube, given the unreal expectations that are generated from recordings where, you don't know how much editing has gone on. There could be like 100 edits in the first 5 bars of a recording, but you wouldn't know that. But live, all sorts of funny things can happen.
Absolutely, sure. But I think, the proof's in the pudding, as they say, and I would never set foot on a stage unless I was prepared to really present something really worth listening to, or something that was, a very polished, finished product. And otherwise, I wouldn't have a career, essentially. But I'd be, a very hungry trumpet player, literally. So, and I like eating. So.
Yeah, we see that, John.
Yeah. Okay. And, okay. And anyway, and yeah. So, it doesn't bother me. I mean, some people will be dead against recording just for the fact that it's a live performance and it should stay just in the moment. And and look, it's I'm more of the thing that if not everyone can get to your concerts all the time, and I don't think you should saturate and bombard people with too much content, but a little bit every now and again is fine, and and it just goes to reinforce what you've worked hard to achieve, and the quality that you can deliver.
But I mean, all sorts of funny things can go wrong in concerts. I did the Beethoven trio once with a cellist, and I don't know if you know Daniel Holloway. He's a cellist here in Brisbane, and he was really getting into it. And the bow, whoom, and we kept going. He picked up the bow. And kept, all sorts of funny things can go wrong. I've actually seen on YouTube a video of an orchestra, and a uh, cat walked in.
Oh
Cat
yeah,
walked. Have you seen that one? Cat walked in
yeah.
across the stage. Yeah. Oh, I lost you again.
Oh, hang on. Uh,
I mean, as nice as it is seeing that lovely polished portrait of you, John. Oh, you turned off your video.
yeah, here we go. What's it doing?
Like you've racked off. Oh shit. Okay, he's racked off. I'll invite him again. G'day again. You racked off for a minute there. You've still turned your
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right. Oh, there we go. Actually, and I wanted to talk about one of the a couple of the other performers in your video. Warwick Terrell playing the sackbut. I've known Warwick for a long time. He used to be principal trombo in the London Phil. Are we right?
London Philharmonic, yeah, he was, and the Adelaide Symphony for about 10 years before that, and he's a remarkable musician and a wonderful guy, and yeah, there's just things he can do on a sackbut or a trombone that most people could only dream of. Really, he's extremely gifted, and um, he's. I like to refer to Warwick as a musician who happens to play the trombone. Um, it's just but I've had a lot of great musical experiences with Warwick, and hopefully a few more to come.
Yeah, I met him in 1999, and I think at the time we had a lot in common musically in the way we approached how we play music. I mean, my approach has mellowed over time, but I remember Warwick as being intensely emotional and passionate about the music and really trying to connect with the music through his deep emotions. Is he still like that? Does he strike you as that sort of musician now?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Still
No,
like that?
he wears his heart on his sleeve when he plays, and that's what I love about it. It's as I said, he's just a great musician who happens to play the trombone, and he really, his internal singing just comes straight out through the instrument. So what you see is what you get with Warwick. It's he plays as he is, and we all do to some extent. And uh, I've never seen him pick up an instrument and not give 100%. He's always fantastic.
By the way, the fans love the music.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah, although they seem to be talking a lot about wine for some reason. Geology fans not so different from musicians. So, and we've got Anna Sonstrom there. You brought her up to play with Queensland Baroque, which is another group that you manage. You come up here every so often and play with us and direct us.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a great joy to come and work with all you Baroque players in Brisbane, and get to visit my old hometown. And yeah, and even though we're going through these strange lockdown times and no concerts and all that sort of stuff, I'm really looking forward to September, when hopefully we can do our next concert together.
Yep, that should be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to a couple of recordings you made, I think, for ABC Classics. So the first one is the Albinoni Violin Sonata in D minor, and then the Toccata from L'Orfeo, which we actually played in Queensland Baroque last year, I believe.
That's right. Yep.
All right, I'll just mute you again and play these couple of tracks, and I'll be back with you in about 4 minutes' time. So I'll see you in a sec. Okay, fans, here we go. Here's a couple of John's professional recordings. Well, those were a couple of your professional recordings for a couple of different labels. Can I say that I actually reconnected with you a few years ago after a long period of not being connected when I was in the car and listening to ABC Classic FM, and there was I think this trumpet with organ came on the radio, and the announcer said, "Oh yeah, the trumpet player is John Foster." And I thought, geez, I know a John Foster, and turned out to be a UU legend. So that's how I came across you again. How much time have you got for me, John? I mean, we can discuss.
Oh, maybe just a little bit longer. Probably not too much longer.
Oh, okay, well, maybe cut you off around 12 then. Just deciding, because I've got a huge playlist of stuff. I think I might go something different. So I want to recall our days in QAO3 back in 1991, because you played a concerto with us a number of times back in 1991. I don't know if you remember back that far.
Yeah, vaguely. I think I played the Hummel.
Yep.
Hummel concerto. Yeah, I think I've still got a VHS somewhere that someone took of that concert. Yeah, I don't have a VHS player anymore, but I do have the tape. Yeah, I think I must have been 12 or 13 or something.
Yeah. Well, actually, I've got a small video of you taken by somebody else that's not on your channel, of you playing the Hummel with I think, is it Rockhampton or something? It's a North Queensland orchestra.
North Queensland Philharmonic.
Yeah, that's a community orchestra.
Yeah, it's an orchestra that is run out of Cairns in Queensland, up in the tropics.
Further up in the tropics than we are. I made made a video for geology fans yesterday up at Mount Cootha.
Nice.
I don't know if you know the geological history of Mount Cootha at all. I didn't. I always thought it was an old volcano.
Right.
But it turns out that about 230 million years ago, Brisbane was party central when it came to volcanic activity. But you not only had volcanoes, sometimes the magma, the volcanic material, didn't get to the surface. It didn't.
Volcanic pores.
Yeah, so sometimes the magma didn't get to the surface. I mean, it intruded into the bedrock and sort of tried to make its way to the surface, didn't quite get there. So it formed like this big magma chamber underground and solidified there and turned into granite. And Australia being as old as it is, a lot of erosion happened. So you had something like sort of 3 or 4 kilometres of erosion. And you get enough eroded material and you get enough uplift of the tectonic, the tectonic plate generating uplift, and Mount Cootha, and actually my suburb of the Gap as well, is just a block of granite that used to be miles underground and is now 287 metres above sea level. It's an old magma chamber. Would you believe?
If you drive between the Gap and Katerra, there's actually those old quarries.
That's the Enoggera granite. That's what we called it, the Enoggera granite, an old intrusion. And I'm actually going to take a field trip out to another old quarry out the back of the Gap Tavern. Don't know if you know the Gap Tavern at all.
I do. It's been a while, but I do know where it is.
Yeah, no, there's an old quarry out there, and actually, what happened, and this is for the geology fans who are listening, is that when the magma comes up into the rock around it, because it's so hot, it cooks the rock that it makes contact with, called a hornfels. So that's quite interesting. Actually, they've got a Dan Murphy's now next to the Gap Tavern.
Okay.
I keep running into Mitchell Lee there on Friday afternoons. Well, I either run into
every time you talk about this, I keep thinking of Red Hot Magma.
Actually, and if I don't run into Mitchell at the Dan Murphy's at the Gap, I run into him at the First Choice at Capera. So Mitchell and I have the same priorities on a Friday afternoon, obviously.
Oh, very
But
good.
oh my God, the drinking stories we can tell about certain musicians. I mean
but we won't. We won't. It's okay. They're not here to defend themselves, Kathy. So we can't throw them under the booze bus.
So I'm going to play this excerpt of you playing the Hummel. You're a couple of years older than 12 here.
Yeah, I think this is probably from about 10 years ago.
All right, I'll be back with you in a sec.
And that theatre no longer exists.
Really?
Yeah.
What did the Dean brothers get involved and?
They did. There's a new shiny hall there now where that one was. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, I'll be back with you in a sec. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Here we are. That's some lovely playing there, John.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just had a little friend come to visit me, my cat.
Oh, how is Monty? Is he still beating up the neighbourhood cats?
Oh yes, he's a brute. He's a bruiser.
Come on, shake. Oh, does Monty like to be picked up? Come on, the fans want to see Monty.
Oh no.
No, Monty doesn't like being picked up.
He's not the size of your average domestic cat, so he may tear strips off me.
I think before I let you go, John, we might talk about the influence in both of our lives of a legendary figure sadly recently passed, John Curo.
Yeah, John, amazing man. Also originally from Cairns, and he founded and was the principal conductor of the Queensland Youth Orchestra for over 50 years, and right up until recently when he passed away, and such an institution in Queensland music and Australian orchestral music. If you look at the orchestral players that have come through the system through the Queensland Youth Orchestra, it's a who's who of orchestral music in Australia and
Overseas.
abroad. A lot of musicians have gone overseas and done great things. So you can't put too fine a point on the influence that excuse me, of what he was able to create and continue to inspire, and the energy that he devoted to this organisation for over 5 decades. Really remarkable. Just the sort of guy that was always made you feel important no matter who you were. Was always very interested in what was going on with people. No one. He always had time for everyone. There'd always be an open door policy at his house in New Farm for after parties and things like that, after concerts, and of course he's got a beautiful family as well. And all his kids went through the Queensland Youth Orchestra as well. And they're all great musicians too, so his legacy is well and truly intact in that regard. And and obviously a great musician in his own right too, as a violinist, viola player, and a great string teacher. And of course he's taught countless students over the years. So someone who's had a very big impact on both of us, and I'm sure thousands of other people can say the exact same thing.
So I wasn't involved because I don't play modern clarinet anymore. But this last track is from the memorial concert that was put on at QPAC. It's not a long clip. This is from Respigi's Pines of Rome. It's the is that right? Trumpet solo?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, this is a funny moment for me in one sense, because even though John had left us, right at the time I had to play it, the solo you can hear is actually intended to be an off-stage solo, so in the distance off-stage. And the conductor decided actually to make a little bit of a feature of it, but at the time, because it's sort of a hymn tune, well, it represents sort of a peaceful prayer moment and a reflective moment. And but on the screen at the time there was about a 25-metre high picture of John Curo, and it was like he was looking down on me one last time, just saying, "All right, Johnny, now come on, you know how this goes, now get it right, And I came to play, and I actually got very emotional right before I was about to play. I didn't know whether I'd be able to get any notes out, let alone the right ones. So anyway, I was just did my best for Big John.
From another Big John.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just meet you again, and I'll see you in a second. We'll sign off.
Okay.
Just beautiful, John.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So, gee, we've been at this a couple of hours. Wow. So, thanks so much for spending a couple of hours with me, John. Hang on. Oh, hang on. I just turned that off. My YouTube's going. Sorry. um, yeah. No. Thanks so much for spending time with me and these geology fans in Washington, of all places, Washington, the Pacific Northwest, who had no idea about Baroque trumpets and. Um,
Tell them all. I want to hear all their Bigfoot stories.
Actually, can I say that this guy that geology live streams actually became so sort of well known that he had a couple of video bombers drop in. Would you believe? They found out where his house was.
Wow.
And well, one bloke was a friend of his, drove 2 hours from Seattle and he had a bubble and bombed Nick's live stream with this boy in the bubble thing, and then came back in another costume as Orange Man and stood outside, and and then another lady drove from Seattle, again a 2 hour drive, in a Sasquatch outfit. So, yes, the Ellensburg Sasquatch did make an appearance.
Good. Well, yeah. Send me all your stories of your encounters.
Yep. Yep. Actually, I'll the lady that one of the ladies that listens to these live streams of mine. She publishes a blog every week and includes my links to my live stream on her blog. So I'll send you the link to that blog if you want to have another look.
All right, great.
So wonderful to see you again, John. Hopefully we'll see you in a few months.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. Yeah.
Okay. Lovely to talk to you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so for all of my one fans that are still on the live stream, that was my friend John Foster, trumpet player extraordinaire. So Monday night we'll be back to my stuff, and I will be playing pieces dedicated and written for Benny Goodman. All my own performances, and then right at the end, you'll actually hear a recording of a piece written for Benny Goodman, played by Benny Goodman and the composer, and another player. So I hope more than sort of 2 or 3 people tune in for that one. I might broadcast that one a little more widely. So it's been wonderful having you here these last couple of hours. So if you look in the description, you'll find a playlist and a couple of things that I didn't play. So sorry for the technical issues at the beginning. Yeah, so it'll be my Tuesday morning, Pacific Northwest time, Monday night. Kathy plays Benny. And I'll see you then. All right. Signing off for now.